What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about my frenzy selling process. Now, I haven't sold frenzy service in a long while just because of how cheap frenzy has become, and it's very competitive nowadays because there are so many other people that are selling for 40 mil per hour and everything. And with the Maple Points market being so low, I think it's like 1 to 10 compared to when I was selling back then. It was 1 to 14, which means for every 14k Maple Points you're buying, you're only using 1 bill, whereas right now you are only getting 10k Maple Points for every 1 bill you're putting into the Maple Points market. So you're getting very little funding, and similarly with other items, they have basically appreciated over time, so you can't really get the same amount of items that you can when you were selling frenzy at a 114 type of rate. So I basically have stopped selling frenzy and basically called it quits. Anyways, so I figured since so many of you took interest in my other frenzy service video, I figure I give another behind the scene type of insight on what it's like being a frenzy seller, especially what my process is for taking in people and how much money I made throughout the whole service period that I've been doing frenzy for. And it will also show you how I take in people, how I keep track of everybody, and things of that sort. So it's going to be, I think, a pretty interesting video if you guys enjoy the other one. So first things first, we have this spreadsheet right here, which basically keeps track of the meso that I make over the course of few months since I've been selling frenzy. And I think I started in around November, and every day I would basically clear out my character and put every meso I have into storage so that I start off with 0 meso. And then I basically put in a date, and then at the end of the day I put in how much meso I make from the whole day. Now sometimes I sold for 8 hours, and sometimes I sold for as little as 4 hours, or even sometimes 1 or 2 hours. So these numbers are not super accurate. They are the total of what I made in a particular day from frenzy as well as fire starter services. So some of the best days I've had went all the way up to 7 bill. Some days were very bad where I only sold like 2 bill worth of service, and then some days were average, which was like 3 to 4, sometimes 5, and then some were above average, like 6 bill, and some were even like, I think like these days I just sold single cast, and maybe like 1 hour frenzy, so I only made like 500 something mil and whatever. But again, the numbers range anywhere from a few hundred mil to 7 to 8 bill. I don't think I ever made double digits in one day because I've never really sold that much. The total amount of mesos I made in November to February was, what is it, 3 months, 3.5 months. Around 370 bill is how much I made over the course of the few months that I was selling frenzy service. Now I also have another tab here called the Times Buyer tab, and this is essentially where I keep track of everybody and call it my patient intake form. So think of the patient intake form you have at the doctors, but for this one it's, I guess, customer intake form for our frenzy service. So first things first, I basically listed the rate that I was selling for. Sometimes I sold for 60, and other times there were days where I sold for 40 mil per hour in an effort to gain more customers, which some days it did work because people were like, oh, look at this guy, he's selling for 40 mil, and then these other guys are selling for 50 and 55. So they obviously went with the cheaper option, which, at the time it was me, and I did get a lot of customers. I think at one point I was handling 30 something customers or something which was absolutely insane considering how potato my computer is. But usually I put 50 mil per hour as a base rate. Nowadays, they're only, again, selling for 40 mil per hour and even at a lower Maple market rate. So I don't even bother, again. So a few columns. I have the duration, which is basically how long they are buying for. Start time, end time, channel, IGN, map, and payment. For payment, it's basically the time multiplied by the rate, essentially. And as you know, I teleport to them by IGN, and then sometimes when, let's say they're in the Pollo Frito map or whatever it is, where I cannot teleport to them by their IGN, I just have their map written down so I can go their map still and not miss a cast and get whispers spamming me like, hey, where are you? Where's my frenzy? Blah. So that's that. That's why I have a map along with an IGN column. There are frenzy sellers that really don't care and they just basically have an IGN column, and if you're in a Pollo Frito portal, they just don't come to you, which I think is a very terrible way about doing things, because portals are really good, especially for mule training. I think anything below level 210, Pollo Frito portals are very good. But yeah, there are times when you even get MVP and you can't teleport to high level players, so having a map is definitely necessary, right? So back then, I basically had this sheet auto-generate all the data for me. So what I really had to do was put in IGN, let's say some IGN here, and then channel, let's say 5, map, let's say CL prison, JK, CLP. But yeah, CLP, and then the start time, I just do Control Shift semicolon, which basically puts in the current time. I learned that little trick, so for those of you who want to impress some ladies with the Excel shortcuts, Control Shift semicolon shows you how the exact time that you are. The point is, when I was doing it, it basically showed the time that I was starting at, and I think maybe because Google is Pacific time based, because when I did this on my computer locally, it showed the time for my actual computer. So it may be that Google Sheets is in PST time. So that's probably why it's 1:52. But anyways, yeah. So you put in Control Shift semicolon and it automatically generates the current time. And then the end time, I basically set it up to have whatever the start time is plus the duration, which is in this case cell A3, and then it'll auto generate the end time for me. So let me show you. Let's say somebody wants 2 hours of frenzy service. It'll automatically generate. You see how it changed from 1:52 to 3:52 here, and that's basically their end time. So I set this up to basically auto generate based off of that. And then the payment, again, it's basically very similar. I just use... So that should have been numbered. I don't know why it wasn't formatted properly, but yeah. This is supposed to be whatever the duration is. In this case, it is A3, which is 2 hours times 24, because that's just how the math is in the system. It's just a default constant that you have to multiply by. And then you multiply by your rates, which in this case it was J1, and that you get 100 mil. So for 2 hours worth of frenzy, it is 50 mil per hour, which is 100 mil total, essentially. Super clear-cut system in my opinion. It was one of the systems I set up because, at the time I was doing so many people at the same time, and so I had to figure out a way to make my inputs more efficient. So how I went about doing it was essentially, automating the end time based off of the duration and the start time that I put, and automating the payment calculation, which saves me a few seconds, and that matters when you're taking on like 30 customers at once. Automates it and tells me exactly how much I need to charge each person and when they're done. So it's a super little neat system. And back then it doesn't work now, but back then it works because I upload this to Google Sheets to show you guys. But it will auto-generate the row for me. So it'll auto-populate the formula here I'll populate the formula here. 2 columns that need to be auto-calculated, they'll automatically populate. And I just really all I put in this channel, IGN, map, duration, and start time is Control Shift semicolon. So that's done. And that's basically how I set up my Frenzy service from the backend. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe if you guys did and want to see more videos like this. And as always, I will see you guys in the next video.